format is constantly changing, which means it's time to talk about hand traps yet again. Hey guys, Otaker back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about hand traps yet again, and we're going to be ranking them based on where they stand in the current format. Before we do though, I have noticed that a great deal of you that watch my videos are not currently subscribed to the channel, and if you like competitive-based content, tier lists, deck builds, or more, consider subscribing to the channel so I can continue to make videos like this one. But also, don't forget to leave a like on this video if you agree with my opinions, and comment down below if you don't. Alright, so we're just going to jump right into it. I'm going to go over the tiers, and we're just going to jump in, because there's not a lot to talk about when it comes to hand traps. But best, these are just the hand traps that you're going to be running in the main deck every time. These cover the most possible bases possible in the current format. Honorable mentions, these are hand traps that could find their way into your main deck. They're not necessarily like exclusive to the side deck. But they are like dependent on personal choices, but also what you think you're going to be going up against. Just very like situational, and they're not bad, but they're also not like sideboard exclusive, but they could find their way into your sideboard. Sideboard only, these are hand traps that are only going to make their way into the sideboard. There's no reason that they should be in your main deck, because the odds of them coming up in every matchup are just slim to none. Just bad, these are hand traps you probably just shouldn't be running at all. And malice only, I saw this in a GGYGO, shout out to him, but I saw this in his hand trap tier list, and I kind of agreed with it. Like, both these hand traps are ass in any scenario that's not malice specifically, so we're just going to put them down in the bottom tier for malice only, because they deserve to be talked about, obviously, but they are not good in any other context except maybe like Ritual Beast. First, we're going to be talking about the two big top dogs right now, and that is Ash Blossom and Foolos. The reason we're going to talk about them at the same time is because they are just guaranteed going to be in your main deck. If you own Foolos, it's in your main deck. There's no reason not to be playing this card. But Ash Blossom covers as many bases as a card can possibly cover. Just all of the current decks right now, minus like Malice, just don't like getting ashed at a very specific point. Like Ryzeal, obviously you don't want to be ashed on the duo drive. You can ash the ice, you can ash the X'd. I wouldn't recommend ashing the sword. Just like Ash covers a lot of bases against the Ryzeal matchup. It's really good against Mitsurugi, because when they try to revive with the tribute effects off of the rituals, you can ash it, and it negates not only the add, but obviously it negates the summon as well. You can also just ash like the rituals when they try to summon from the deck, but overall, like, Ash is Ash. She's been good since her conception, essentially, with like 1 or 2 formats where she wasn't like crazy, like tier format. Foolos is just good. Foolos is like not as crazy as everyone gives him credit for. Like, Foolos is still good. They compare him obviously to Max C, and I understand it. I found myself doing it as well, but like, as I've come to own the Molcharmies now, I own all of them, I've come to realize like these cards are like not as crazy as we all give them credit for. They are by no means Max C, not even Foolos. I will admit, out of the 3 Molcharmies, Foolos is the more overtuned, because he covers both bases of the most common form of summoning, which is from the main deck and the extra deck. But as I have come to own these cards, I've realized that they're really not like crazy. There are plenty of decks that can just make a minimalistic board in the current format or not play into it all. But overall, the Foolos is still your best version of the Molcharmies, so it's always going in the main deck. As for the other two, definitely sideboard only for the Meowls. And Perulia, I want to put in honorable mentions, because Perulia, I personally have been running it in the main deck in this current format before I got Foolos. When I was only playing Perulia, I had it in the main deck, and I still currently have it in the main deck, but I'm probably going to put it in the sideboard pretty soon. But I can see an argument to put Perulia in the main deck currently. Almost every deck minus Malice is summoning from the hand once or twice, if not 3 times. Perulia in the main deck covers your matchup against not only the Mitsurugi, but it also covers your matchup against Ryzeal. It covers the White Forest Azamina, because they're summoning from the hand at least 2 or 3 times. It covers Blue Eyes, because they get 2 normal summons, and they can probably summon from the hand at least 1 other time. So just Perulia in the main deck isn't like the worst option. If you don't own Foolos, or even if you do, you could make an argument to put Perulia in the main deck. Meowls, however, I think the current format is a little too broad to put Meowls in the main deck. I think Meowls is definitely like a side deck exclusive. Obviously, it's good against Malice. It's really good against Blue Eyes because you can cover the bases for True Light summoning from the graveyard, for Maiden summoning from the graveyard. There's plenty of like niches. You can also like cover the base with Maiden summoning something else from the graveyard if she gets targeted. Like Meowls is good against like Blue Eyes. It's not crazy against Ryziel because the only like summoning from the grave they're doing is like off of Node or off of Twins, and like they're not really doing that in the same turn most of the time. Meowls is good against Mitsurugi because they summon from the graveyard at least once or twice. You could also just save this for your turn and then like you go Meowls, and so that way every time they summon off the Futso, you're drawing a card and benefiting from it. But like overall, I could not see this being put in the main deck. Maybe put it to like 1 in the main deck, just like, hey, I saw it against the Blue Eyes matchup. Goes crazy. All right, Ghost Spell. Every time I think this card's going to be good in a certain format, it's just like kind of falls short. And I think it's because like compared to all of these like different hand traps, she's like the 5th best option. So it's like if you can fit her in, if you can fit the 5th best option, then like go for it. I'm going to put her in like honorable mentions because she has good matchups. Like against Malice, you can stop Splash Mage, you can stop the Field Spell, which, by the way, if you Ghost Spell the Field Spell goes to grave. You can also Ghost Spell any of the Bestials, you can Ghost Spell the GWC, you can Ghost Spell True Light, you can Ghost Spell Maiden. Like, Ghost Spell has all these really good interactions. But at the end of the day, even though she can stop these interactions, 9 times out of 10 are not the choke points for the deck that needs to be hit. If anything, Ghost Spell tends to be an inconvenience to the deck that gets hit by Ghost Spell, instead of like an actual like, hey, this is where I'm going to stop you, or this is where I'm going to slow you down to a position where I can stop you in 2 more hand traps, or like 1 more hand trap. Like, Ghost Spell slows them down, but like again, 9 times out of 10 it's like an inconvenience. Bestials, I think if you can be playing Bestials right now, you should be. Like, I put Mag and Druisworm in here because I think Mag is on a whole nother field as any of the Bestials, but I think just in general, if you can be playing Bestials right now, you should be. Fiendsmith is everywhere. Malice is playing it as extenders, obviously, but you can also use your Bestials to kind of like disrupt them because, yes, if you banish their Malice monster, they get their Malice monster back, but not only do you get a body, but then they have 1 less body because they're not getting their Bestial on the board, and that does matter. So Bestials are just crazy. Obviously, you can Bestial the Detonator, you can Bestial the Aggregator, you can Bestial the Twins. The only matchup that like Bestials are not crazy in right now is Fire King and Water, and like, fuck both those matchups. I have Called By on this list because it's like a pseudo hand trap only on your turn. It's the hand trap that stops hand traps. I'm gonna have to put it in like an honorable mention because like if you can fit the one of, go for it. I've seen people putting Called By in the side lately. I feel like they're only doing that because they have 1 spot in the side and they just don't know what to fit it with. So, you know, fair enough. Contact C, I think, is just bad this format. There's been some cool formats where like Contact C's been cool. You could argue doing Contact C against like Ryziel. If it's pure Ryziel, you could go Contact C because it's a level 8, and as long as it's on the board, you cannot, you know, it has to be the material for the next summon you make. And if Ryziel is rank 4 locked, then they're not rank 4ing. But like, they could also just crash this and like, I don't know. Like, I think of all the hand traps you could be running against Ryziel, this is not one of them right now. DD Crow, like, I'm going to put in sideboard only. Obviously, no one's running DD Crow right now because the Bestials exist. But I can't in good conscience say Crow is bad because he's not. It's just the Bestials are better. The Bestials are just DD Crow, but you get a body. The perks of Crow is he can hit any card in the graveyard, not just light or dark monsters, or just monsters in general. He can hit any card. But again, I can't in good conscience just say Crow is bad. I guess realistically, I could say Crow's bad in this format, which is what we're talking about, so fair enough, we'll put Crow in bad. But like, the Bestials at the end of the day are just better. The Psy-Frames, again, I think just bad in this current format. Like, you could make an argument to run Gamma, but at the end of the day, you're running the Brick, which is the driver. But neither, I would just recommend not running either, unless you find the need to run that extra hand trap, but we're kind of in a more low to the ground format right now. So like you don't really need to be playing all these bajillion hand traps. Spooky Dog is a sideboard only. Every time I keep thinking this card is like kind of falling out of the format, someone keeps bringing it back out of the grave. Funny because it's a ghost girl. But no, my buddy was playing Spooky Dog at a regional I recently went to, and he got like 13th. This card's just good because it exploits the time rules that we're currently in. And it's like a better maxi in the sense that, like, especially if you're getting close to time, you're basically telling your opponent, give me life points and you lose, or stop playing and I probably kill you next turn. So it's just like a floodgate of all floodgates. Crazy enough, if you just activate this on Malice, they can't recover. Most Malice players, either they're going to play into it and give you a bajillion life points, and at the same time their life points are going down, but also they can't finagle their board, so that way GWC gives them more life and time. It's actually like kind of funny how this works. I was playing it at a regional recently for the mirror match, and I would side this in, and I activated Dogwood when they went to go their first banish effect to revive. So they pay 300 and I gained 900 because it was Dormouse they brought back off the field spell. And so like they lost 3, I gained 9, and they just look at me and go, oh, I can't get over your life, and we have 2 minutes on clock. I'm like, you're damn right. Dogwood's, it's still a good card. If you can fit it in your sideboard, honestly, I would still recommend it. If you're only going to locals, don't worry about this card. But if you're going to like regional or higher, might want to consider it still. Droll, I think, is crazy. I really want to put Droll in like best right now, but not every deck's running it. A lot of people thought like, oh, Droll would be crazy against Mitsurugi, shut him out. It really doesn't. If they normal summon Saji, they're searching Ritual every time, and Ritual helps since they can get Ritual twice because of the guy that can bring it back from the graveyard or banish pile. They're still ending on Ame, which is essentially a pseudo Omni Negate. But Droll's still like good. Droll's good against pure Ryzeal. Droll can be good against certain versions of Malice, or if a Malice pilot is playing into Droll for no reason, they can really just get punished by it. Droll is obviously good against Blue Eyes because they're not going to be able to add, like if they add Mausoleum, they're not going to be able to like add a bunch of cards. Like if you Droll them before they do Wishes, then it's pretty good. Droll's still a pretty solid card. The best decks in the format currently can play around it. Droll's good against water. Droll's very good against water. But other than that, this Droll's very slowly falling out of the format, but he's still there. Imperm's still crazy. Imperm plays around, obviously, talents. It's a target negation. Imperm stops some of the best forms. Imperm is good against most of the decks minus Malice. It's probably the best form of interaction against Duo Drive because it doesn't play into talents. It's a target negation. You could argue like Ogre would also be good against that, and we'll talk about her in a moment, but Imperm's just like the best form of interaction against most decks right now. Impulse, again, just it's one of the best. If you can play Impulse, you're playing Impulse, and if you can play Impulse, you're playing Water or you're playing Malice right now. Neither Blue Eyes nor Ryzeal can play this card, but that's fine. They're playing Purge, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But Impulse is crazy, especially in Malice, because we already have traps like in the graveyard. Most of the time we're activating this card, which means we're popping your shit. Impulse is just, it's a good card. I don't know what else to say. One could argue that the only matchup Impulse is not good against is Ryzeal specifically, because most of the time the only effect that they're using to special summon a card is Ice, which is 9 times out of 10 the first card they're summoning, the first monster they're summoning. But if they're playing like the Fiendsmith cards, then this is a little bit better, because then you can like Impulse the Sequence or the Requiem if they still control a card. There's ways to play this against Ryzeal, but it's not like the best, and it's also just bad against the pure version. Gallmeister, just bad. I don't need to talk about this card. Ghost Mourner, she's kind of fallen out. I still see her every so often, and if we do see her, she is a sideboard exclusive, because at the end of the day, she's still target negation, and that's good. But right now, like the target negation we want to be seeing is more responsive target negation, like Valor and Imperm, because we're not going to want to use the Ghost Mourner on the Duo Drive the moment he's summoned, because the only on summon effect he's doing is attaching, which means if they can get him off the field and get him back on the field, they can still get his search. The only good thing like Mourner does is like play for time, but I think if you're gonna play like a time card for the Ghost Girls, then Spooky Dog is still better. Nib is crazy. Like if you can put Nib in the main, you should be putting Nib in the main. It's good against Blue Eyes. It's good against Malice if they're a bad pilot. It's good against Ryzeal if they're playing Fiendsmith. If they're playing Pure, this doesn't do diddly fucking squat. If it's good against water, it's as long as they don't rip it out of your hand with Minstrel or they summon Toad early. Like Nib is just good in the current format, and it's going to continue to be good as we go into Alliance Insight, especially if a ban list addresses some of the cards that maybe out this card in a certain way. Like we're seeing a lot of people predict like Minstrel getting banned, which would be the hand knowledge that water gets. We're seeing a lot of people talk about Toad getting banned. We're seeing just a lot of people theorize that there are cards that out Nib, like Caesar, that just are going to possibly get hit on the next ban list. I don't know. If you want to see my ban list prediction, link will be in the description below. But Nib is crazy. Like, Nib is like one of the best hand traps in the current format. And if you can be playing it, you should be playing it. Ogre, I want to put an honorable mention. I would almost argue like sideboard, but I have personally been playing it in the main, and it's really good right now. Ogre, like we were talking about Ogre when Ryzeal first came out, because it can stop the Duo Drive, because Duo Drive has to detach to add, and if you pop Duo Drive, it does not add. But it wasn't enough. Like we saw Ghost Ogre kind of fade out a little bit because it was the only real matchup it covered. Like Ogre can be good against Malice if they go into like Haggard or Splash Mage, because then you can pop the Haggard or Splash Mage and they're down 2 bodies essentially. But sometimes they have a way to recover from that. But Ogre's really good now because of Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes has 1,000 cards that can just die to Ogre. You can Ogre the Mausoleums before they send a Blue Eyes to the graveyard. You can Ogre the True Light, which then means True Light will pop all of their monsters. You can Ogre the Lordly Loads, so that way they just don't get all the benefits of that. You can Ogre a bunch of stuff in Blue Eyes. And I think Ogre, because it covers a couple other bases with some of the more popular matchups. It can cover something with Malice. It can cover plenty of Ryzeal interactions. I think because that Ogre having that extra low oomph from the Blue Eyes counter is enough that we could argue putting it in the main deck. So because of that, I think Ogre's like good in this format. Phantasme, I have to say sideboard. If you're playing Phantasme, you're probably playing it against Malice. That being said, I wouldn't justify just putting Phantasme in the Malice only category, because there are a couple of random matchups where this could come up. You could be technically playing this against like Blue Eyes because they summon the Link 1, so you can draw 2 cards, put 1 back or something like that. You can play this against Water because they summon a couple of Link 2s. Like there's some mild application. I think they even play a Link 3. So there's some application from Phantasme in other matchups, so I can't just put it in Malice only, but sideboard only for sure. Purge, I have to put it up there with Impulse. Obviously, they're very like dependent on what deck you're playing. If you're playing Purge, you're probably playing Blue Eyes. You're not playing Ryzeal because then you can't activate your fire effects. So Ryzeal just can't play any of the dominances, which is fine. They don't need them. But Purge, you're probably playing Blue Eyes, and this card's just good. It's just another Ash Blossom, essentially, for adding cards from deck to hand. So if you can play this, you should be playing it. Retaliating Sea, I think, is just bad, this current format. There's not a lot of cards, there's not a lot of spells in the current format that are special summoning monsters. We were seeing this for like a 2 YCS period because the Hallowed Examina was a spell card that could special summon a monster, but then Retaliating Sea also just muted it out because they had to send a Sinful Spoils to the graveyard, and because of Retaliating Sea, it didn't hit the graveyard. So, again, this was just kind of a thing where he had his random spotlight, and now because of that, he's just out. Shifter, I have to put like honorable mention. Some Malice players are slowly fading Shifter out because certain matchup it's not like great against. It's good against Ryzeal in like a minute way because Ryzeal can't summon X because of its effect. Ryzeal can't activate Node's effect to revive from the graveyard. They can't activate, or they can't use Ice's effect to special itself. And then on top of that, it just counts out the Fiendsmith cards if you're playing that. And then obviously Shifter is good against Water and Fire King. But like Shifter, as Malice players are starting to realize like they just don't need it. We can play around a lot of stuff. If you still can play Shifter, I mean, go for it. If you want to play Shifter, go for it. I'm not going to say he's sideboard only because some Malice players are still playing it in the main deck, and there's a handful of other rogue decks that can play this card. But overall, like, Shifter's like, yeah, I can't say he's the best because at the end of the day, some of your matchups are Malice, and you don't want to Shifter a Malice player. They don't give a fuck. Next, we're going to talk about Vitos. This is a card that, like, I feel like has some good application in the current format and just, like, not seeing play. And I guess the realistic part of it is that, like, the best field spells in the game currently are Malice and Underground and Rizio Cross. Malice and Underground, I mean, you can just be playing Ghost Bell for that. Cross, if they get that on the board, they already have an Xyz, which means they're negating Vitos. And at that point, it's like, Fire King Island is, like, not great because they probably have Sanctuary to protect it. They're just, Vitos is, like, he's crazy, but, like, the current field spells just don't care about him right now. And so because of that, I kind of have to put him in, like, just bad for now. I think Vitos is one of those cards that he will be crazy in a format that the field spells need to resolve. Veiler, I kind of have to put in an honorable mention, because at the end of the day, if you can play Imperm, you're going to be playing Imperm over Veiler. Veiler also plays into talents. The thing here is that Veiler is combo for Blue Eyes. So Veiler has application. Blue Eyes is playing 3 Veiler because not only can it be searched, but it can also just be normal summon to make Blue Eyes combo. So it's, like, not terrible. And then other decks are just playing it because in combo with the Mole Charmies, Imperm and Veiler are crazy because they're target negation. Neither of them are once per turn. So, like, if you run 6 or you run 3 of each, you have 6 target negations that are not once per turn off of the Mole Charmies. So, like, in combination, they're crazy. But in terms of, like, versus Imperm is just a better card because it cannot be, it cannot trigger talents. The last hand trap I want to talk about, and I did save this one for last, is Winter Cherries. This is like the Metal Tronus if you can't afford Metal Tronus. I personally am running Winter Cherries just because I like the card. I have 3 ultimate rares. I like the art. And also I just can't afford Metal Tronus. It's $30 for a playset right now. And also just, like, at the end of the day, it's actually, like, a little better in my personal opinion. I can see application for Metal Tronus because it can just out the detonator and just also provide a body for extension for, like, Malice players. My thing is, like, Ghost Girl and Winter Cherries can just say, oh, you normal summon a monster, get the detonator out of the extra deck, you don't need that anymore. Or get the Spirit Dragon out of the extra deck, you don't need that anymore. Like, it just says no. That being said, if you are playing Ghost Girl and Winter Cherries, you're playing her in the side. There is just no reason to be playing this in the main deck because she's so situational on what deck you're playing against. If you play her in the main deck and you're going against water, there's no shot you have Totally Awesome in your extra deck. I just refuse to believe that. So you are 9 times out of 10 just playing her in the sideboard, and when you see her, you tell your Rizio player goodbye to the detonator. Hopefully you're playing Mitsurugi to still set up a good end board. And that's really it for the hand traps. Like I said, there's not, like, a lot to talk about hand traps. Like, most of us have come to the common consensus that, like, these cards are good, these cards are bad. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Maybe I missed a hand trap, or maybe I didn't give a specific one enough credit. But also, let me know if, like, some of these bad ones, if you're playing these for some reason. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.